This video is about the Chaconne from Partita No. 2 by Johann Sebastian Bach. I will explain the most important things about the work and the composer. Johann Sebastian Bach, 1685 to 1750, was a German composer and musician of the Baroque era. He is considered one of the most important composers in the history of music and had a significant influence on the development of Western music. Bach was born in Eisenach and came from a family of respected musicians. He worked as an organist, conductor, and cantor and composed numerous works for keyboard instruments, orchestra, choir, and solo instruments. His most famous compositions include the Street Matthew Passion, the Goldberg Variations, and the Sonatas and Partitas for solo violin. The Partita No. 2 in D minor for solo violin, BWV 1004, was probably written between 1717 and 1720, when Bach was working as a Kapellmeister at the court of Chaconne. The partita is one of a cycle of 3 sonatas and 3 partitas for solo violin that Bach probably composed for the violinist Johann Georg Pisendel. The original manuscript of the works has not survived, but several copies from the 18th century do exist. The sonatas and partitas were long regarded as technical exercises and fell into oblivion after Bach's death. They were only rediscovered in the 20th century and are now part of the core repertoire of every violinist. The Partita No. 2 consists of 5 movements based on dance movements from the Baroque suite, Allemande, Currenti, Sarabande, Jague, and Chaconne. The first 4 movements follow the traditional structure of a partita, while the concluding Chaconne forms the climax and centerpiece of the work. At around 15 minutes in length, the Chaconne is longer than the first 4 movements combined and represents one of the greatest challenges for any violinist. The Chaconne from Partita No. 2 is considered one of the most important works for solo violin and the high point of Bach's output for this instrument. A chaconne is a variation form in which a short, concise theme is developed in various variations. Bach's chaconne consists of 64 variations on a 4-bar bass theme in D minor. The theme is presented in different rhythms, tempos, keys, and moods, and develops into a monumental sound structure of overwhelming expressiveness and virtuosity. The chaconne is characterized by its contrapuntal complexity, harmonic sophistication, and technical challenges. Bach uses the possibilities of the violin as a solo instrument to create polyphonic structures and to explore the limits of the instrument. He uses double stops, chords, arpeggios, and other technical means to create the impression of polyphony. The chaconne moves through various keys and moods, from dark and melancholy to triumphant and ecstatic. The variations are linked by motivic relationships and harmonic connections, forming an organic whole. The Chaconne from Partita No. 2 is considered a milestone in the history of violin literature and a masterpiece of solo instrumental music. It demonstrates Bach's ability to create a wealth of musical ideas and forms of expression from the limited possibilities of a single instrument. The Chaconne has had a significant influence on subsequent generations of composers and violinists and continues to serve as an inspiration and challenge today. It is part of the standard repertoire of every violinist and is very popular with audiences. The Chaconne has been interpreted and recorded by numerous renowned violinists. Among the most famous recordings are those by Jaska Heifetz, Nathan Milstein, Yehudi Menuhin, and Itzhak Perlman. Each violinist brings his own personality and individual interpretation to the Chaconne, thus revealing the complexity and richness of Bach's composition. The chaconne has also been transcribed for other instruments such as the piano, guitar, or organ, and inspired composers such as Johannes Brahms and Ferruccio Busoni to create their own arrangements. Johann Sebastian Bach's sonatas and partitas for solo violin mark a turning point in the history of the violin as a solo instrument. Before Bach, the violin was mainly used as a melody instrument in the orchestra or in chamber music. With the sonatas and partitas, Bach opened up new possibilities of expression for the violin and established it as a fully fledged solo instrument. The work served as a model and inspiration for subsequent composers such as Beethoven, Brahms, and Schumann in their own compositions for solo violin. Without Bach's pioneering work, the development of violin literature would be unthinkable. Johann Sebastian Bach's music has stood the test of time and is more alive today than ever. His works are performed and studied in concert halls, churches, and music schools around the world. The Chaconne from Partita No. 2 is just one example of Bach's genius and his ability to touch and move people with his music. His legacy as a composer, musician, and teacher is immeasurable and will continue to inspire and accompany future generations. Bach left the world a musical treasure trove that is always worth rediscovering and experiencing.